But what's really nice about this is I have visibility into all of this, right? And this is something, again, I was a COE lead previously. I led an automation program. We didn't have this level of visibility all in one place. In this episode of AA Illustrates, we're going to be talking about setting up and using Automation Anywhere's brand new CoE Manager. Sound good? Let's jump right in. So first off, what is CoE Manager? And I've got it pictured here on the right-hand side of the screen, but CoE Manager is a cloud-based solution that enables you to manage your automation pipeline. So all the way from tracking development to the delivery of automations, you have visibility into where your automations are at every step of the way, and you can track that delivery. Additionally, you have the ability to report on the value of not only delivered, but also pipeline opportunities. And this is huge because this enables you to make data-driven decisions as an automation lead. If I've got 5 opportunities in my pipeline and I need to prioritize which one should be done next, I've got data on that and I can see exactly which automation opportunities would have the biggest impact for my delivered value for my organization. Why use CoE Manager? Well, first off, you may be focusing on the wrong type of reporting. And this is something that I hear quite frequently, right? We'll talk to some automation leads and they'll say, hey, we delivered X number of bots this quarter, or our bots ran a total of 57 times in the last 2 weeks. And yes, those are good things, right? Those are operational metrics though. Those are not business value metrics. And so when you're sole reporting on what your program's value is to your organization relies on the number of bots that you're delivering or the number of times an automation has executed, you may be incentivizing and focusing on the wrong things. And so with CoE Manager, it kind of gets you out of that and gets you into the mode of focusing on what is the dollar value of savings that have been delivered to my organization based on this automation running or this particular automation that I have in my pipeline. It also gets you to think about the time savings that is delivered by an automation executing, right? So I've got, 100 hours of productivity that have been generated back to the organization that someone is not having to manually do anymore because this automation executed. So we want you to think about not only the operational metrics of your automation program, but specifically the business value metrics. And as you have those conversations with leaders, as you have those conversations for strategic alignment with your executives, you'll want to make sure you're able to successfully and clearly communicate the business value that your automation practice is bringing to the organization. And CoE Manager helps you to do that because the logic for that is automatically baked in to an opportunity that you submit all the way through the pipeline and into deployment. And we'll show you that exact process here coming up. It helps you to track your ideas from deployment to delivery, and that can be challenging otherwise. And we'll look at a demo here in a little bit, but we're gonna take something that starts off with an idea, we're gonna fill out an opportunity idea submission form, we're gonna take that all the way from the idea phase to the pipeline to in progress and finally to deployment. I'm using very specific language there. You can see here there's some tabs that kind of lay out what that workflow is, and we'll walk through that exact process. But suffice it to say that it can be challenging to track an opportunity along that pipeline. It can also be difficult to prioritize which use cases should be focused on, and CoE Manager helps you with both of those. Additionally, scaling an automation program requires visibility, tracking, and communication of the value of my automation program. And CoE Manager helps with all of that. So from me being able to track the delivery of automations from pipeline to delivery, to being able to clearly communicate the value of delivered automations, as well as communicate some of my targets and forecasts for my program savings. You'll have the graphs, you'll have the data, you'll have the reports to be able to do all of that. And that's why CoE Manager is huge for an automation leader who wants to take their automation program to the next level. So a couple key benefits of CoE Manager. One, visibility end-to-end for automation opportunity tracking. Like I've mentioned, taking something from an idea that could be submitted from anywhere within the organization, having someone fill out the data that I need to systematically make decisions about the prioritization of opportunities, all the way to delivering my automation into production and tracking its value realization and making sure that the benefits that are realized by this automation match up with my expectations, all of that can be done directly in CoE Manager. The automated ROI tracking capabilities are huge. We want to be tracking the ROI generated for every single automation opportunity. This enables you to do that automatically. It's baked in. You're already tracking those kind of values as you create something that's an idea and move it through your pipeline. And so that needs to be like baked into what you're doing as an automation program, being sure to track all of those ROI capabilities. The reporting on forecasted and realized savings is huge. Again, I could say that an automation is going to save me $100,000 a year, but unless I have the data to back that up with how many times it's executed, the work that it's done, etc., this enables me to see all of that in one place. It additionally lets me see how I'm doing based on my pipeline, right? So if my goal is to save $200,000 in the next 6 months, and I can see that I'm tracking towards $100,000, I can also see what my pipeline might do to get me to that $200,000 number. And because of the way that this is set up with not only delivered value tracking or delivered automations tracking, but also forecasting based on my pipeline, I can have great visibility into where my program is going and where I'm heading. That can also help me to prioritize which particular use cases I might take on next. And we're going to dive into all of that here in a demo in just a minute. The automation pipeline intake channel is also huge here. I can post this link. I can have anyone submit an idea within my organization. I can then have those ideas all collected to one place. I can very quickly review them. They're automatically scored for their alignment to our operational objectives as well as their alignment to complexity. And based on that scoring, I can see, which ideas I want to prioritize, which I want to take seriously moving into my pipeline, which I might pass on for right now. And so that ability to track and view all of those and again, systematically evaluate them, I think is huge. And then finally, automation development, project management. As something moves to an in-progress opportunity, we're going to see that I have the ability to essentially create a project management schedule from within CoE Manager. And that enables me to track all of the tasks that are required for delivering a particular automation. I can assign those different tasks to different users in my system. I can have them make status updates. I can have them add attachments when their work is done. And so again, another great way for me to have visibility all from one place into everything that's going on with my automation program. One caveat here I'll say before we start. Not only is this good if you're running a centralized automation program, but if you're federated, this works even better, right? I have that visibility. I have the ability to split this up so that respective business units can be delivering, focusing on prioritizing their own automation use cases. And this works for both cases. So I do want to call that out. We'll be kind of going through a demo here in a second of like one guy wearing multiple hats and trying to switch around. But if you are doing this in a federated where lots of teams are doing their own development and responsible for their own opportunity selection and prioritization, this still works fine for them. So what we're going to look at here, we're going to do a user interface overview. I'm going to go through kind of how the user interface is laid out, some of the things that you want to pay attention to as an automation lead. We'll also go through and work through submitting everything from a new idea, moving that through the workflow pipeline so that you can see exactly how that works. We're going to be switching back and forth a couple times, and I'm just doing that so that we can see kind of the opportunity view versus the admin overview that I could see. And so as an automation lead, I'm probably going to be switching back and forth between both of them quite a lot. So I did want to show both of those, but we'll get into that and we'll show exactly what it looks like for me as an admin to see all of the ideas, to see all of the pipeline opportunities, to see all of those that are in progress. I can also see all of those that have been delivered, but we're going to go through that exact process of taking something from an idea to the pipeline, to in progress, and then finally to a delivered and deployed automation. We'll set up the project schedule as a part of the in progress so you can see exactly how that Gantt chart is set up, how you can set up different tasks and assign those to users. And then finally, we'll go through the process of connecting our CoE Manager environment to our Automation Anywhere environment so that we can track the value that's been delivered by an automation. That's actually the screen that we're looking at right here, so that I can connect my opportunity with an actual automation that might be scheduled or might be running by API call or whatever. But I'm going to associate that bot from my Automation Anywhere control room with my CoE Manager, and we'll show you how to do that as well. All right, let's jump into a demo. So Right here, I have logged into my CoE Manager environment, and you can see that I've got, this is my home page, which is my dashboard. I've got forecasted savings. I've got benefits that have already been deployed. I've got benefits that are in progress. I also have benefits that are in my pipeline. And so this is a really cool way for me to be able to, as an automation lead, quickly be able to see what's going on with my automation program. So I can see that forecasting. I can see how we're doing tracking against our goals. In the top left here, we've got our idea velocity. So we can see the number of ideas that have been submitted for each of the past months. I can also see the value that those ideas represent. And so that helps me to track to make sure that we have a healthy pipeline of new ideas coming in. Down below that, I can also see my forecasted savings versus my program targets. I'll show you how all of that is configurable, but here my program target for, let's say, Q4 of next year is 2.4 million. I can see how I'm tracking against that, with the blue being my deployed savings, so those automations that have already been deployed and are currently running, with yellow being my in progress, so those automations that I'm currently working on, I'm currently developed, and then with the orange here being my pipeline opportunities. So those that I've said, yeah, it's more than just an idea. It's something that we're going to tackle. I've moved it into my pipeline and we're reporting the value for that. And so that enables me to track these across so I can kind of see where I'm projecting out. Obviously right now we're in, I think, Q3 of this year. So this is where I'm at right now. I've got a couple that are in forecast, but I'm going to continue to grow out my program. On the right side, we can see my opportunities by stage. So here I have 21 that are in progress. I have 6 that have been deployed, sorry. 21 in progress, 6 that have been deployed, 13 that are in the idea stage, and 10 that are in my pipeline. At the bottom, we can also see my value by stage. So starting with number 1, which is the idea, that's the first step in my workflow. I have about almost shy of 1 million here in ideas, 1.4 million in pipeline, 2.6 million in progress, and then 1.1 million have been deployed. And so that enables me to track all of that. Now, working across the top here, everything that gets submitted is an opportunity. And an opportunity could be something that's brand new, it's still in the idea phase. An opportunity could be something that's already in my pipeline. It could be something that's in progress, or it could be something that's already delivered. And so we can see here on the far right side here where I have my stage, that represents which opportunities are at what phase of the process. And so here, something brand new is just an idea. That means one that someone hasn't actually evaluated yet, but hey, someone sent it in and it hasn't been moved to the pipeline yet. And we can see across the top here that we've essentially got 4 major steps in our workflow that we'll be following as we create new opportunities. So it'll start off in the ideas bucket, and someone will evaluate it there, and we can see some scoring for those ideas. And then from there, we can submit it to the pipeline. And as we move something from idea to pipeline, it's basically us saying, hey, we want to move forward with this one. We need to do a little bit more research. Maybe we're going to go back to the business user and make sure we've got that workflow documented properly. We've got our SDD started, things like that. We're preparing for this opportunity to move to in progress. And in progress, that's where we're actually going through and doing some of that project management that I talked about. We can go through and create a Gantt chart, and I'll show you that. And we can start to track the status of this thing as it goes through its delivery pipeline. And then finally, once we've completed it as an automation, we've built it out, it's ready to be delivered to production, we can move that to the deployed status, and then in deployed, we can see those automations that have already been completed. Okay, so that's a general flow of the way that opportunities will move. If you have an automation that you've already created and you don't want to go through this process of like creating an opportunity, I'll show you that you do have the ability to just import automations that are already completed without necessarily going through this pipeline. So we're going to start off with creating a brand new opportunity, and that will drop it into our ideas bucket. So I'm going to click this button here, and it's going to take me to a new tab where it's going to basically walk me through a set of questions that I'm going to answer to submit my idea. What I really like about this is it's systematic. It's not like someone just sending me a random email and saying, hey, we need help in the finance area. can you please come and create an automation and do your like automation magic with our team? It's people actually having to submit through and answer these questions. Even if they don't know the answer perfectly, we can always go back to them to evaluate. But what I really like here is it's a systematic evaluation of these new ideas or these new opportunities. So what I'm going to select here is my business unit. These are fully customizable. Right now in my demo environment, I have finance, sales, and HR. I'm going to select a sales opportunity, and we'll give our opportunity a name. And this is how it's going to be identified through the rest of that pipeline. We can change it later if we need to, or if someone writes something goofy. But for right now, let's give our opportunity a name. And I'm going to say order fulfillment bot. That's what I'm going to call my automation opportunity. And I give just a really basic description here. Again, you can make this available to anyone in your organization so they all know where to come and submit these ideas. Here, you're going to be kind of left up to their ability to describe it. As we get to these next couple tabs here, you'll see that we're asking questions that are more like drop-down specific. So it won't be so much of a free form, and we can systematically evaluate those opportunities. So let's going to say when an order is placed, this automation will go through and fulfill the order in our web-based order management platform. Totally made up. We're not actually going to build that bot. We're just putting it here for a description. And then you give your email address as a contact so that if someone is going to reach out to you with some follow-up questions about your idea submission, they know exactly where to get a hold of you. Okay, so for our next tab here, we're asked some questions about this process itself. So let's say what % of the tasks can be automated in this process. I'm going to say we can automate 85% of the order fulfillment process. How many people perform this? Let's say that there's a small team of 5 people who are doing this on a weekly basis. How much time does each person spend? How many hours does each person spend on this each time they perform the process? Let's say that it takes them 2 hours every time they do order fulfillment. How many times per month? Let's say that they're doing this daily, so that probably comes out to be about, 18 days a month. And then what's the average hourly rate each person is paid? Let's say $85. Here we have some questions about alignment to strategic objectives. So as far as operational agility, let's say that this helps this team to move much more quickly. So we'll put very high. As far as customer satisfaction, high, right? Any customer who places an order, they want their order to be fulfilled as quickly as possible. So that would be high to customer satisfaction. Regulatory compliance, let's put low here, right? Obviously we want to be able to track our orders, but it's not really a regulatory thing. Risk mitigation is also high. We've fully audited this process, and so we'll say that this enables us to make sure that it's always done correctly every single time. And revenue enablement is obviously high. If this is helping us to fulfill orders, then it's obviously related to our sales objectives. This next tab is more or less the complexity of the use case. So the degree to which the process is rule-based and does not require subjective decisions. Let's say it's very high because we're just taking orders and basically putting them into another system for fulfillment. So we're really moving data from one place to another for our mock scenario here. The degree to which the process is stable, let's say it's high. Degree to which the same steps are repeated without any variations. Again, this is probably a high one. Degree to which multiple systems are involved. We're going to say this is very low. We're only moving data from 1 or 2 systems to another. And the degree to which the process is fully documented. Let's say pretty high. It's probably not perfect documentation, but we'll leave it at that. Cool. So at this point, we have submitted an idea, and here we're looking at the opportunity itself, right? And we're looking at this idea. We can see that it's in the idea phase of our 4-step workflow here. I see that it has an overall score of an 88 and an 80% score for alignment with a total expected annual benefit of $156,000 and $156 and $60 and a 0 benefit realization to date. I can see also the submission date, and I can see some basic details about the description, which is what I provided when I filled out that form. So this is not the experience that a user would see. We're kind of flipping persons now. We were looking at the user experience there when we go through and fill out that, that form. So a typical business user or someone within our organization. We're now looking at kind of what I would consider the automation lead experience, where we're seeing what the result is of their submission. So I'm going to click here on the Details tab. And again, I'm specifically looking at this opportunity right now. Okay, so we'll flip back to that other tab here in just a second to see this one. But we see lots of details related to the labor savings, right? So 85% of the task is automated, 5 people doing it, 2 hours per person, 18 times per month, average pay of $85. I have the ability to come in and obviously change any of this if I need to. So if I say this is more like 6 people, I have the ability to do that. It's automatically going to update these numbers for me. So we just saw that that changed from, I think, 156,000 to 187. So I do have the ability to change these if we've evaluated that, like, hey, they actually submitted a bit low, or part of our investigation into this found that they, might have fluffed some of these, or we had to go back and reevaluate. So I do have the ability as an owner or an admin of this particular opportunity to make those changes. I also have the ability to add additional cost benefits. So there could be costs that are avoided, maybe risks that are avoided, revenue that's enabled, productivity that's improved. Let's say that our revenue enabled is an extra $5,000. This is saved as like a one-time annual benefit. So not one time per year benefit, I should say, but this is an annual added benefit. So here we can see that our expected labor hours are 187,000. We've added an extra benefit of 5,000 for a total annual benefit of 192,000. Okay, so I do have the ability to add these in here, and if I could say like, hey, customer orders are placed and fulfilled more quickly, getting more orders in per year. So I can come and add these benefits. You do have the ability to customize these a bit as you need to. So it's nice to be able to, fully customize this and really capture the benefits that are being provided by your opportunity, not necessarily limited to just the labor hours. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can see the complexity score. So this was, again, I think this was the last tab that we looked at there. We were asking about, like, is this rule-based? Is it have a lot of variation? Is it the same kind of process over and over? How many systems are involved? So here we have a complexity score of 1.4 out of 5, which is good. That means we have a lowly complex automation, right? So this is a low complexity. If I have 2 opportunities that are identical as far as the total expected annual benefit, but one is a low complexity and one is a high complexity, I'm obviously going to take the one that's a low complexity because it's probably going to be a lower risk for it to possibly be screwed up, or for that automation to be a complex automation that's going to take longer than expected to develop. My cost estimate is automatically put at 10,000. This is related to my complexity level. So if we had gone through and changed this to a complexity, let's change this one to very low. We'll change it real quick just so I can show this and hit save. Okay, I'd only move to a 1.6. Let's change a couple more. Low documented, very low here. Okay, so now I'm at a medium complexity, and notice that my cost just went up. And what you can see is that if you're doing, let's say you're doing agile development and you're used to saying that, like, oh, this is a small t-shirt size, this is a medium t-shirt size, this is a large t-shirt size, and a low takes us, let's say, 4 weeks for development and $10,000. A medium takes us 6-week development and $15,000. And a large takes us, $30,000 and 10 weeks to develop. That's what this is doing here, trying to automatically estimate the cost for you based on the complexity level. You do have the ability to change all of these values. So if 15,000 is not appropriate for medium, or 10,000 isn't appropriate for low for you, you do have the ability to change those, not only by just going here and changing it one-off, but you can change the values behind the scenes that are being used for these calculations. and I'll show you that towards the end of this video, but you do have the ability to do that. So I'm going to change this back to a low here because I kind of screwed this up. Process is stable, very high, high, high. Well, I screwed this up. I don't know what we're doing. Well, we're going to leave it at medium for right now. I don't remember what I had those values at before, but we'll keep going with medium. So we're at a medium complexity. Estimated cost is $15,000. That doesn't change anything with our value delivery, but our complexity has gone up a little bit here. Finally, we have alignment, and alignment is just represented here as a score. It can help us to evaluate two opportunities side by side, but my operational agility, if it impacts customer satisfaction, regulatory compliance, risk mitigation, revenue enablement. Again, you can customize these if you need to, but this helps me to quickly identify and really systematically identify these new automation opportunities. So we've looked at this particular use case from our kind of opportunity itself view, and we can see our workflow here. I want to switch back now to this other tab where we were looking at the tabs along the top, and I can see ideas. And if I look at the I've sorted them here by the submission date. I can see my order fulfillment bot here. It has an overall score of 84%, an alignment of 80%, a total savings of $192,000. If I wanted to sort these by overall score, I can come and do that. Here I can see that my order fulfillment bot is scored at number 2, so my weekly report may be the opportunity I want to take on first because it does have a low complexity. It does have slightly greater alignment, though it has slightly fewer savings. But what's really nice about this is I have visibility into all of this, right? And this is something, again, I was a COE lead previously. I led an automation program. We didn't have this level of visibility all in one place. And so this is huge if you have the ability to actually make sound decisions about like why we're choosing this opportunity before another one. And I can say exactly, well, it's because it aligns with our operational objectives, it has a low complexity, and the savings is higher. And maybe I'll want to cherry pick some of these low automation complexity opportunities to send to certain development teams or to certain developers because I know they're newer. And this, again, helps me to be able to make those kind of decisions and have that data to back it up all from one place. Additionally, I know that I have specific objectives that I'm supposed to be hitting, right? Maybe I'm supposed to save my program an additional $200,000 before the end of the year. I can quickly come here and like look based on complexity or look based on alignment to see which opportunities make the most sense for us to take on to make sure that we hit our goals. So there's tons of rich value here that I can come in and view as an automation lead to make those kind of decisions. And that's the big thing here. We have data so that we can make data-driven decisions to choose what's best and what's next for our automation program. Okay, so going back to our dashboard real quick, I do want to point one thing out here. When we were looking at our forecasted savings, here we see that we have 461,000 in pipeline, 1.7 in progress, and what was the bottom one here? 985,000 in deployed. What's not showing up here is my ideas, okay? And what that means is as I move something from the idea phase to the pipeline phase, it's gonna start to show up here as a part of my projected benefits. By moving it to pipeline, I'm saying, yeah, this is a real idea that we wanna tackle. It doesn't mean I'm doing it next. It doesn't mean I'm doing it in the next month or it's the next opportunity I'm taking on, but I'm adding it to my pipeline. And when I add it to my pipeline, it is going to show up and contribute here to my pipeline savings, okay? So I just wanted to keep that in mind. If I refresh this, we will see that we have our first idea submission for November, right? I hadn't submitted any other ideas this November, so when I refreshed, we did see that we do have a savings here in our idea velocity. It's also going to be showing up here. We've got 14 ideas now. So we can see that that's automatically starting to show up, although it is not impacting anything with our forecasts yet. All right, so I'm going back here. I'm going to advance this to the next stage. So it says advance to S2. And now it is in the pipeline, Okay. Now, when we think about what does it mean for the pipeline stage, at the pipeline stage, this is where I'm going to go through and possibly have someone who's doing like a BA type role do the analysis on this opportunity to make sure that all of our numbers here as far as labor savings and our additional benefits are accurate and correct. I also want to have them make sure that we have all of the details that we need to move towards development. So if I need to submit a business case or some documentation or make sure that we've got this process super well documented, right? Because we said here it was highly documented, right? Which impacted our complexity score. If that's not the case, I need to figure that out. And the pipeline is where I do that, okay? So this is where I'm going to have someone who's a BA possibly go through. They're going to identify, what was the, let's grab a file here. I don't know what some of these are. Here's a Twitter package README. I'm going to upload that, right? So I'm going to say, hey, this was the idea submission. We went through, we evaluated the opportunity score. When an order is placed, let's say SDD has been added, explaining the use case in greater detail. Probably not the most appropriate thing for just a description, but I'm going to hit save here. And we're going to see that now there is a file that has been saved, and I have the ability to download that if I need to. And that can be referenced by my developers as they eventually get to working on this, right? I also might set an implementation date here if I want to. I don't have to set it quite yet. If we go back here and look at our ideas pipeline here, okay? This is no longer an idea. It has been moved to pipeline. So I'm going to scroll around in pipeline because I want to find this. And there's some really interesting graphs and charts that I can see here. First off, this use case is right now in the additional pipeline. So that's to say that it's not going to show up here on my pipeline. It's not to the point where it's waiting this final approval. The pipeline is actually a two-step workflow process. So let's say that we've gone through the process, we've done our documentation, we're ready for this thing to move to the approval phase where a BA is going to submit this for approval. So the BA submits it for approval. It would now be waiting for approval to move from pipeline to in progress. If I switch back to this other tab now, I'm going to refresh, and this will now show up on our table at the chart where it's something that's waiting for approval. And here it is, my order fulfillment bot. And I can see the savings, I can see alignment, I can see the total cost. Again, as an automation lead, this is where I'm going to be making my determinations of how I'm going to prioritize which opportunities next, based on score, based on the value, based on the complexity, all of those things. I also can see a prioritization bubble chart here. And on the x-axis, I see alignment. On the y-axis, I see complexity. The sweet spot is going to really be up here, right? Where I've got those that are the least complex, but have the greatest alignment for my organization. So call meeting scheduler has great alignment. I think that must be on this. Yeah, right here. Call meeting scheduler has great alignment, but an overall score of a 69. Versus my order fulfillment bot, here we have slightly better complexity, meaning it's less complex, and still have an alignment of 84%. So this would be the opportunity I might want to prioritize, okay? But this prioritization bubble chart gives you a visualization of all of those opportunities when compared to one another. So I know I've worn many hats in this video, so I'm going to switch back to the automation lead hat, and I'm going to review this order fulfillment bot. So I'm going to close that one. I'll open it right here. And I'm going to say, yep, I'm ready to approve this. There's one detail that I want to set though, which is to say when I want this thing to be delivered. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to set an implementation date. Technically, you don't have to do this, but if we're trying to think realistic of what it would be like for an opportunity to go through an idea submission all the way through my workflow, I'm going to say I want this delivered the 1st of the year. Monday's probably a holiday. We'll do the 3rd, as if someone's going to deliver this thing. And I'll hit save. Okay. Again, it is still sitting in pipeline. I'm going to hit approve. Okay. At this point, it moves to in progress, and we saw that there's some new tabs that got added here. It's in progress now, which means that it's ready for development to begin on this particular use case. So again, this is how I can track through this workflow to know that, hey, this is something that we're actively working on. I can come back and report on the in progress of all of the automations that we're currently developing. I'm going to switch back to our main tab here before we dive into that opportunity. This would now be showing up in my in progress savings, and I can see that, right? This value has gone up in my forecast, and that's because I've moved that idea from what was a pipeline savings to now an in progress savings, because it's something that we're in the progress of delivering. Same with this one, it is moved from the idea phase to in progress. So I can see that all of these graphs and all of these charts are being updated real time as I make those changes with moving through my workflow. If I go to the in progress tab here, again, I'm an automation lead. What do I need to do? I need to report on the status of all of our in progress opportunities. So here I can see the status. I can see if we're tracking hey, things look good on this one. Looks like we're going to hit our target date. Things are red here. We're not going to make this one. Things are yellow. Maybe I don't even have an update, or I don't have a status update. So these are the kind of things that I'm going to be keeping track of as an automation lead, so that as I'm looking at this and I'm making sure we're tracking towards our delivery, I can see where we have things that are off track completely, things that are at risk. I can see those counts here. I can also see the total benefits of my in-progress opportunities. So the one that we're working on right now does not have a status because we haven't done anything with it, and that is the order fulfillment bot. So let's click on that guy. Okay. Everything in our details tab is pretty much the same that we just saw. If I need to update it, I do have the ability to do so, but nothing has changed here. For my activities, this is where I'm essentially doing my project management, and I have the ability to add tasks to this in progress automation. So let's say complete TDD, and I'm going to have a start date of today and a due date of next Monday, and hit create. That's going to show up here, right? And I can assign this to people if I need to. Let's create a couple more of these. Let's say provision bot runner. Doesn't necessarily have to wait until all of our documentation is done. So we'll start that Thursday, and we'll say it has to be delivered by Monday as well. Okay, so I can go through here and track all of the different steps and all the different tasks that I need to complete. As I highlight one of them, I can see any attachments that are related to that, right? Maybe we want to save our TDD here. I can click the plus, and I have the ability to either add a file directly, add a URL. So, hey, maybe I'm going to reference a file that exists on my SharePoint. I can give it a name. I can give it a URL directly to that SharePoint file. Or I have the ability to reference a file that was previously uploaded. This was our documentation for Twitter that we said was our SDD. So I have the ability to reference that as well, right? So I can come here and add those different tasks. I also have the ability to set an owner for these, right? So who's going to be the person who's doing the development? I can come here and change that, and I could set that person to be the person responsible for doing this particular step. And this enables me to really work together with a bunch of people on this automation opportunity. And I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to assign this to anyone. But I have the ability to come here and change the owner. The owner would also have the ability to come set the status. So here I can say on track and hit save. It's not done yet, but we are tracking towards it. We're making good progress. I also have the ability to come and set a status here, right? So if I want to change the submission, I can do that. I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm just going to set a status. I'm going to say the status is on track, and let's say started working on TDD. My technical design document is underway, right? So I've updated my status here. I'm going to open up in a new tab back to our in progress because we want to see that. And now if I sort by, let's see, my target go live. Here's my opportunity. I can see started working on TDD. So I have that latest status update. So I'm able to track that and I'm able to see that like, oh yeah, okay, I've got a good status here. Things are green. Everything looks like I'm on track. So this is a great way for me to be able to work together with other people within my organization, assign out tasks as we complete them. We can come and mark them as complete. So I'll mark this one as complete. I'll say a completion date of tomorrow, which won't make a ton of sense, but I'll hit save. And that particular task is now completed. And I can do the same thing here, or I can add additional tasks, right? So this is a great way for me to be able to track exactly what needs to be done for each of my use cases. And that might change based on the use cases. So sometimes I have to get application access, or I have to, get other teams involved or things like that. Maybe I have to create a custom package for this one, but I don't have to for another. I can mark all of those things out and track them here all in one place. And again, as an automation lead, as a project manager, I have the ability to see that. I can come in here and get visibility into all of that, which is insanely cool, right? Great way to be able to track my progress. Let's say that we have now completed this automation though, and hey, we're done. I'm gonna submit this one for approval. Okay, now my in progress is just like my pipeline in that it's kind of a two-step one, right? If I'm an automation lead, I can see here that I now have an automation that is ready for approval into production. And so I can come and click on it. Let's find that one again. We'll just go back here to order fulfillment. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my workflow. Here as an automation lead, I'm going to approve this. That will move it to the deployed stage. And now it has been deployed. Now, up to this point, we haven't made any connection between our control room and our CoE manager, right? That connection doesn't exist. So I'm going to show you how we do that. You could make that connection before you move it to deployed. You could do it after you move it to deployed. It really doesn't matter, but it is done on this execution tracking tab. Okay. Now here we're able to add a task bot to our particular opportunity or to our deployed automation. What we do here is click on this add task bot. I'll give it a name and I'll give it an automation ID. I'm going to log into my control room real quick. Actually, I've got the automation ID right here. Oh, here it is. So this is an automation that exists in my public directory. It's called Quarter Close Official. Here is the automation ID. I'm going to capture that. I'm going to add that here. Now, again, I've called it Quarter Close Official. That has nothing to do with the use case that we just talked about on CoE Manager. But I'm going to give this a name here, and it really doesn't matter, but I'd probably want to name it close to what I named my automation here, so that as I have to go back and forth to maybe find or associate these two, I have the ability to do that. So I am going to copy this name, but it doesn't, I'm not going to copy it. It doesn't have to be the same. Oh, it was quarter close. Okay. No relationship to the actual control room right here. If I just want to call it Quarter Close Official, that works too. What really creates that association is this automation ID. So I'm going to hit create. Okay. And now my CoE manager has been associated with my control room. Now, part of that is based on the automation ID. Part of that is based on my configuration. So we went through, we looked at the ideas, the pipeline, the in progress, and the deployed. I want to jump over to this admin program right here. In admin program, this is where I'm able to actually evaluate everything related to my automation program as it exists in CoE Manager. So I can say the program start date, my currency, my number format. If I need to make changes to that, I have the ability to do so. I also have a weighted benefits per stage score. If we think back to, let me go back to this one. We're jumping around a little bit, but I'm going to get us there. This is all going to come full circle in just a second. If we think back to this, right, our estimated savings for pipeline versus in progress versus deployed, those each have a weight. Stage 1, which is my idea, has a weight of 0. Stage 2 has a weight of 25%, which means that if I said my automation was saving $100,000, here I would get credit for $25,000 in that pipeline. Meaning it's not exactly like a sure thing yet, but we're going to give you 25% credit there towards your projections. As it moves to in progress, notice that my weighting goes up and I've got a 50% weight, right? And so now it's kind of more of a sure thing. And then once we actually finally move to stage 4, which is our deployed, that's where we're at 100% weight, meaning that the value that we're delivering by that automation running is being captured at 100%. So you do have the ability to come and make adjustments here if you don't like those specific numbers, but that's how that savings is being generated for this graph down here. As I switch to the Admin Advanced tab, which I think is the one I was trying to get to originally. Nope. This is where I have labels for some of my complexity, some of my cost avoidance, or my one-time annual benefits that we talked about. I also can come here and adjust some of the questions that are being asked with relation to complexity and alignment of those opportunities. This gets back to that intake form that we filled out in the very beginning. These are all of those questions. If I want to come and make adjustments to those questions, make adjustments to the answer, make adjustments to the weighting, right? Maybe the documentation is only a 10% complexity weight for me versus 30% for the number of systems involved. I do have the ability to come and make those adjustments as I need to. Finally, I do have the ability to change some of the icons if I really want to. These are using Font Awesome, so if I want to change those, I can. The other thing I talked about is if you want to just import a bunch of automations that you already have in your control room, you don't want to go through that process of taking them through the pipeline like I just showed, you can export all of your automation opportunities and then re-import them with the automations that you want to add. So this will export, I think it's a XLS file for you. So this will export an XLS file for you. I'm going to name that real quick. Oops, that's not it. It's on my other screen and I'm bringing it up real quick. There we go. So if you wanted to rename that, you do have the ability to do so. But here I would need to come through and basically fill this out for those opportunities that I want to add back in. I could re-import that, and that's going to enable me to essentially add those automations without having to go through that pipeline of idea submission all the way to deployed. The Admin Tech tab is where I was trying to show you, and this is where I actually associate my control room URL with a control room username and API key, and then this is enabled, right? And that's where I've created that association between my control room and my CoE Manager, and then that bot ID or the automation ID that I gave, it's what's creating the specific savings that would be generated for that order fulfillment bot. Now, the order fulfillment bot has not run yet, and I do have it running on schedule, but we're not going to see this show up immediately. And the reason is this is going to fetch data from the Automation Anywhere control room at a regular interval, but it is not real time. I think it happens every 4 hours. So this is not for like my real-time tracking of how my performance is doing in my control room. For that, I'm going to want to go look in my control room and use some of the capabilities here with my in progress and historical tab to be able to see if I've maybe missed, if I've missed a run or something like that. This is going to be generally for my reporting and trending data. And so I won't see those show up immediately. So if you run your automation, don't freak out that it's not showing up right away. It will show up. And then finally, for my admin users, here I can track all of the other users that have been created in my CoE Manager environment. I can see what permissions they have. I can see what opportunities they're associated to. So if I do need to review or make changes here, I can do that. Now, switching back to my deployed, I do have a bot that I have run and deployed several times, and I called it the Dev Evangelism bot because I wanted to show you some of the savings tracking that we can do for an actual automation. So I implemented this one on August 1st, so it's been running for a little bit here. That's not right. I think I backdated that one. Anyway, if I go to my execution tracking, I can see that for the month of October, this automation ran a total of 360 times successfully. It had 0 failed executions. I also can see the automation duration, so how long it actually ran. If I look at the metrics here, nope. History, this is where I can see exactly where I was moving it to pipeline, where I was moving it to deployed. If I come back here to my CoE Manager and then deployed, this is where I can track the benefit realization. So my forecast savings versus my actual delivered. Obviously, this is, I'll say that I'm recording this on November 7th, so I'm not very far into November yet. So it looks like I'm way low of my target, but that's just because of where I am in the month. Here, what I can see is that for October, I exceeded my forecast and I had an actual savings of $151,000 based on the runs of my scheduled automation. So I can see my percent of benefit achieved. I can also see my benefits that have been realized. So I have the ability to come here. I can see the number of times any executions have failed or bots have failed, things like that. And then the reporting tab, I can break these down by business unit and by opportunity, so I can see which opportunities are generating the most benefit. I can dig in a bit more to those that are recently in development. If I want to get a quick status, see generally how things are looking all from one tab, I can do that from the reporting tab. Okay. Let's flip back for a quick recap and then we'll be done here. So we went through CoE Manager. I want to talk about my 3 favorite features of really why this is important and why you really want to consider using this. Number 1, I love the systematic approach to evaluating and managing pipeline opportunities. This is something that I can say as a former CoE lead we used to struggle with. We would get people who would submit ideas, but it would be through emails. Some people would send a spreadsheet. Sometimes we had this spreadsheet that people would fill out. Other times they didn't fill it out really well or they left things and so our reporting was off. This is a great tool for being able to have a systematic way for people to submit automation idea opportunities and to be able to quickly evaluate them, right? Yes, it's not going to be bulletproof. There's going to be times when people underestimate the value that a particular idea could deliver for the program. There's going to be times that they over-evaluate or they overestimate the simplicity of their automation, and that's totally fine. But it at least gives us a starting point for being able to systematically evaluate those different opportunities and prioritize which ones we want to work on next. And I think that's the biggest thing is as an automation leader, I have the ability to prioritize which opportunities I want to work on next, which are going to help me to meet my operational objectives or my business values so that I can really, as an automation lead, have visibility into my pipeline and know what should be prioritized next for delivery. Next, I really like the customization capabilities. You have a huge capability of being able to customize pretty much everything in here from, like I showed you, being able to customize icons to being able to customize the opportunity details once they've been submitted through the idea phase and into the pipeline phase. Like I can come and change anything, and I really like that. It's not like something gets set in stone once it's been submitted. I do have the ability to reevaluate that and make changes to those values as it goes through that workflow. And then finally, the ability to track my pipeline and delivered automation capabilities for value reporting is huge. So it's one thing to be able to say, yeah, we've been able to track the value delivered by our automation program based on, some people do it by the number of runs, some people do it by the money saved or hours saved, productivity hours generated. But I like the fact that you're able to do that based on not only those basic metrics of the hours saved or the money saved, but also those one-off metrics like, what key avoidance of penalties or financial fees did I have? Did orders get processed more quickly? What's the value for that, right? I have those one-off values that I can add, but I also have the values for my pipeline opportunities. And I like the way that they've done that here. I like that I get 25% credit as I'm looking at it in my pipeline, 50% credit as I'm looking at it in my in deployment in delivery, and then finally as it gets to deployed, then I get 100% value. I like the way that that's been done. And as an automation lead, that visibility into knowing what's coming next for my automation program is huge. So I really like the way that they've done that. I like the graphing, and I think it's really helpful to be able to have that visibility, know what's coming next, know if I've got a healthy pipeline as an automation lead. Okay? So this has been AA Illustrates, all about CoE Manager. Hopefully this helped to demystify some of the capabilities of CoE Manager and for you to understand exactly how it can be used within your organization. All right. If you enjoy these AA Illustrates videos, be sure to like and subscribe for Automation Anywhere. It's really helpful for us to see where people want to see more videos. So comment below, let us know the other content you want us to cover. Let us know what other topics you want us to dive into. We've done everything from package builds to now CoE Manager, full bot builds, challenges, things like that. So let us know the kind of content you want to see, and we'll be sure to deliver it. My name is Micah Smith. Go be great. We're constantly putting out new Automation Anywhere content. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming tutorials and bot builds. Go be great.